Good morning and welcome to Abrasive and Proud of It Live. I'm Mike Z, and my cohort Chris, he is not in today. He's actually thinking something healthy like blood test or something. So he'll be joining us later today on Instagram. But today I'm going to talk to you about aerosol cans. Why do we have so many aerosol cans? Why are there so many options? What do all the options mean? So today we're going to cover as much as we possibly can, and hopefully you'll learn something from it, gain some information, find out that aerosol cans can be a crucial part of your finishing arsenal, and something that you can use instead of maybe sanding everything back down in case things didn't go well the first time. So let's get started. Apologize for the noise there. All right. First thing I want to talk about before we start doing aerosol cans is dyes and stains. That is a stain, that is a dye. For the most part, they look very similar. But until you angle it, you'll notice that the stain has more accentuation of the grain, where the dye is kind of more of an overall color on the piece. So what this also means is that if I turn it this way, this kind of looks a little bit more muted, and this is still very vibrant. You can still see the grain really well. And so that's the difference between stains and dyes. So what does that mean for finishing? Well, for instance, we have a very popular aerosol question, and that is, which one of these do I choose for my project? So what I have here is an ultra classic and a tone finish. They're both in cherry. They're both a 408, as you can see. And let me show you what happens between this one and this one. What I normally tell people is that this is more transparent, more depth of color. This is a little bit more opaque, which hides the grain more and still has a depth of color. So if I put that there and that there, here we go. See if I can angle it just right. So this side here, this is the tone finish. And what you'll notice is that some of the grain is somewhat muted, some of the figure here is somewhat muted. It's not as clear and crisp, but it's a nice cherry color. If I move it over to this side, you'll notice that there is a lot more figure still in the grain. Oh, sorry, there we go. You'll notice there's a lot more figure in the grain. You'll notice that the transparency is still there as far as you can still see the grain really well, but the darkness is there. Okay, you saw that depth of color, and that's key to having a dye touch-up. And in this case, this was sprayed on bare cherry, cherry on bare cherry, which normally you want to put a sealer down first. That way you kind of get rid of some of these areas that popped up with the wood. But right here in the middle is natural cherry, and this is unfinished. So this whole top half has not been finished, so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like with just the canning, because there is a little sheen to it. And what that means is that this is a dye solution dispersed in a lacquer, so it has a little bit of a build to it, or sticks really well to an existing finish, such as if you've already finished something in lacquer, you stained it, you dyed it, and you notice that the color's not quite where you want it to be, or you're trying to match up to an existing. Instead of trying to sand it all back down and redo it, that's what touch-ups are for. So what I have is 0 coverage. This right here is 1 coat. Okay, so it's just a little bit of color. This here is 2 coats, and this here is 3 coats. So you don't have to do 3 coats all the time. Sometimes you might only need 2 coats, and sometimes you might only need 1 coat. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many coats it takes, the coverage that you get, and the overall color. But what I like about the Ultra Classics, the M100s, is that you get depth of color being very radiant, but at the same time, you still get the clarity of a dye in an aerosol can. So what do I mean about a finished piece and you want to touch it up? Let's say, for instance, we have this piece of walnut right here. Okay, one side you can see is still shiny. I haven't scuffed it. The other two we scuffed on a previous episode of Abrasive and Proud of It. And what I'm going to do is simply going to take a cardboard piece of paper, anything where I can make a stop line. See that there's a stop line? And I'm going to use a light golden oak. And just mist it. You're not looking for high coverage, you're just looking for a light mist. As you can tell, that's what this looks like on the piece of paper. So there's not a lot sprayed on there, but just enough to now change the color to a more aged walnut look without having to do anything extra. Now you can do this after the fact. You can do this before your last coat of clear coat, especially if you're using lacquers. That way you kind of give it an embedded look, but it adds that walnut color. Natural walnut over time ages to a golden golden color. So it's a quick way to get that to make that finish happen without having to sand it back down, restain it, rethink the whole process. Just add a toner. So what else do we have on the table? Well, Mohawk has a ton, and I mean a ton, of aerosol cans. They are the premier aerosol can touch-up for factories, for cabinet companies. If you've got a kitchen cabinet from any of the major brands, typically they'll have a Mohawk touch-up made just for them. That's how much they make aerosol cans. So let's talk about the difference between this one. Where'd it go? Well, we have a pre-cat. Oh, I used it on. All right, so another question we get, what's the difference between the tone finish and the pre-catalyzed lacquer? Tone finish is your general nitrocellulose lacquer. Original 1920s, 1930s, that's just a basic nitrocellulose, good for carvings, good for any kind of furniture that's not going to be used or utilitarian, mirrors, picture frames, things like that. Tone finish works good for. Anything where you're going to have moisture, anything where you're going to have high wear, traffic, tables, end tables, things like that, that's when you go to a pre-cat. Pre-catalyzed means that there is an additive inside that once mixed with the oxygen in the air, catalyzes and cross-links. What that means for you as a consumer is that this will not leave a white mark whenever there's a water, like if you have a drink instead of a coaster, you put it right down and it turns white, that was a standard nitrocellulose lacquer. This will help prevent that. Heat, like a hot plate, maybe around 300 degrees. Anything hotter than that, and that's just, you need a plate for that. But like a hot dish, a hot plate, this will help keep the heat marks turning white from coming up, as well as just general scratches. Anytime you scratch a finish and it turns white, it was this finish. This will help eliminate that. So that's the difference between a tone finish and a pre-catalyzed finish. So what about, I have a specialty finish, I don't really know what it is. Well, if you have anything that is a UV cured finish, they have the Ultra Flow Ultra Bond. What this will help do is bond to pretty much any finishing surface that you have to help touch up a rub through. Let's say you had to touch up a color with one of the aerosols, then you cover over with this. That way it blends into it looking like that other finish. And so the Ultra Flow Ultra Bond is the way to go for that. If you just want a finish that flows out like magic because the standard aerosol can wasn't, that's why they have the Ultra Flow. The Ultra Flow is going to give you a nice smooth finish, almost like glass, especially whenever you're doing something in the gloss region. This is a great can to have. Still nitrocellulose, still works really well with other lacquers and sealers, but this is the way to go if you need to make sure it flows out like glass. What about a sealer? Well, the classic is the Easy Vinyl Sealer. The most universal sealer I've ever used. This will bond to pretty much any existing finish, and then you can put any Mohawk finish on top of it. So it's a good in-between for lacquers. So let's say you have a polyurethane finish, you give it a little scuff, maybe 150, 180, light scuff, we're not talking about a hard rub through. Then you put the Easy Vinyl Sealer on. This will help bond to the polyurethane while the lacquers bond to it. Let's say that you have a piece of furniture that has been scuffed. Okay. Hey, Hank. Okay, so how does Mohawk product work with a rag applied to rub finishes? They actually have a flow out. They have a pour and wipe, which is more towards a polyurethane. You don't want to do that with the aerosol cans. The aerosol cans are simply spray and let go. You don't want to mess with them with a rag. For the most part, spraying is the easiest, most consistent way to finish instead of a brush or a rag. So, but they do have a pouring wipe, but not in an aerosol can. And good morning, Roberta and Chuck. So what you'll see here is that you see this is the same piece I used just a minute ago, and we have rub through where the sheen is no longer as shiny as it was. Or let's say you put, let's say you just put finish on and all of a sudden it turned white due to high humidity. That's when they came out with this. This is a no blush blender flat. So if you have a flat finish to a matte finish, this is the can you want. They also have a gloss and they also have a super no blush. Those are both for gloss finishes. This is the specialty one for your flatter, satin, matte, and flat finishes. And what this does, very little amount is needed. But you simply just put it on. See how there's not a whole lot on there? And after time, this will actually blend to look just like this once it dries. So it blends in any scuff marks, any kind of blushing, anything like this. This is the can to have. I will tell you that this is a very potent finish, so make sure you do it outside and not inside like I've just done. Oh, baby. What happens if you have a couch that has lost its luster? Well, guess what Mohawk makes? Leather and vinyl finish. Why not? They also make different colors. We have a full line of those colors. Everything from your dark burgundies to your light tans. So if you have a rub through, a scratch, Mohawk also makes a fantastic line of leather repair work. So this is actually an aerosol can for leather and vinyl finish. Let's say you're making wallets. Let's say you're making knife sheaths. Something you want to add to it that's not just a standard oil finish. Boom, there you go. What happens if you decide that you want to paint? Well, of course, they make a colored lacquer enamel. This is black satin. They have it in black super gloss as well as black flat. They also have white. What this is basically going to give you a true deep black color, but give you the sheen on top, so it's a one-shot step. It's better than getting an enamel at a store. It works a lot better as far as if you need to touch something up. Let's say that you sprayed something and actually put your thumb into it. Boom, there you go. Those other cans, they don't really flow out whenever you spray a second coat. This will. So this is a great product to have if you're doing any kind of carvings, turning, something you want to accentuate with a black color that already has the finish in it. This is the way to go. There's that light tan I was telling you about from the leather repair. New to the product lineup from Mohawk is the outdoor aerosol. And a lot of times I've seen exterior finishes that are water-based. Never have I seen an acrylic aerosol that's outdoor-based in flat. Maybe you've seen it in gloss. Very rarely do you ever see it, though. This stuff right here, 2 coats, I am blown away by how fast it dries, how well it covers. I have left a birdhouse so far directly out in the elements to see how well it does on one half of the birdhouse. I sprayed this, the other half I left bare just to see what would happen. And it still retains the color. It didn't turn it gray. Still has a nice finish on it. I'm very impressed with this product in general. So if you need an exterior finish, quick spray, like let's say you're doing fishing lures, let's say that you're doing any kind of duck decoys that maybe will be used. They don't recommend it below the waterline for a long time, but if you're just going to use it sparingly, not for a long time, as far as years, this is a good product to have. Ooh. There's our no blush gloss. Even if you have orange peel, let's say you sprayed with a standard HVLP sprayer and you got orange peel on there, this will help flow it out. This will help give you a better, smoother finish. Let's say that you've got a spot where either a thumb, dog hair, let's say a bug flew into it. You let that finish dry, you scuff it a little bit, and then you spray a little bit of this if it's a gloss finish. Remember, this is for gloss. The flat blender is for flat. Ooh. Now, with the popularity of keeping your hardware and you want to make sure that you have a nice finish, like let's say silver, for instance, Mohawk makes that too. This is a silver aerosol can. They also have golds. They have antique golds. They have rich pale gold. But this is basically a pure aluminum flake in a lacquer So you can spray and adhere to almost anything. It's cheaper, goes further than some of the big box store stuff that you can get, and it is a consistent color in every can. So if you spray it today, spray it tomorrow, doesn't really matter. It'll still be consistent. So they also have metallic aerosols. They also have metallic powders if you want metallic powders too, but the aerosols are awesome. Let's say you got a piece of furniture and you're not quite sure if there's any contaminants on it, not quite sure what's on there. What about Quick Clean? Quick Clean is one of those products that you spray on and you simply wipe off. If it turns white as far as the finish on top, meaning you have a wax or some sort of surface contaminant that's not ready for finishing, spray again, wipe off. It dries quickly. Any finish will work after you put this on and let it dry. So it's great for very quick, clean applications. Mostly it's just for existing finishes that you plan on either touching up that you hadn't touched up yet. So like hotel industry uses these a lot for going in and they'll touch up scratches, dents, dings, things along those lines. That's what this is for. Speaking of hotel industry, this is probably the #1 color in the hotel industry is your ebonized cherry. This is a very deep red color. I'll show you. Hope everyone's having a good day. I know this isn't the most fascinating subject, but it does come in handy whenever you need it. So again, with our white card, and there you go. That's the color that's typically used in most of your hotels. Newport Ebonized Cherry. This is again a 10. This is a 115, so this has a lot more pigment in it than dyes. And you can tell by how dark it got here. And of course, if it was actual wood, you wouldn't see that splotchiness, but on paper, you do. And what I will tell you to do is go ahead and spray a coat. See how kind of shiny that is? It's still pretty wet, but you just simply spray again to start getting coverage that you want. See, it doesn't take long. 3 coats and you'll be fully dark on this one. All right, Hank, what you got? You have a rubbed finish, but the color or tone doesn't quite match. What product can be used to change the color, and does Mohawk have a way to help match colors? All right, so no, they really don't have a way. They have a color wheel that they offer that you can use. The thing is, if you have a rubbed finish, you want to go towards, they do have a what is it, smooth coat, they call it. It's a buff coat product that looks like a hand rub wax finish that you can use in an aerosol can. I didn't bring one over. It's a very specialty product, so in your case, that would be what you use. But in this case here, really, you just have to look at the color chart, kind of figure out the color that you're looking at. Do you need to go more yellow? Do you need to go more red? And that'll kind of help push you in the direction that you need to go. Hey, check it out. You see my screen? All right. And do you sell rubber gloves? I don't wear rubber gloves. I don't mind having a painted thumb, as you can tell, with the white underneath it. If I had to put on gloves every time I sprayed something, I would be, well, paying the glove company a lot of money. So, last few products we have left are a crystalline glass cleaner. One of the better products out there that they use in actual museums. Smithsonian has this. It is for a filmless finish afterwards. It evaporates very quickly. It's just a good product to have overall if you need to get some glass or the crystal cleaner. And finally, one of my favorites. Let's say that you want to cheat at something, because I mean, finishing, who wants to take the time? You see now how that blends together now that that's dry? Yeah, that's the no blush. That's what that does. What about a whitewash? So a lot of times pickling whitewash, you put finish on, you rub a white glaze type product over it, and then you wipe it off and put finish on top of that. What happens if you just want to, add a little pickle to your piece? Let's try it on this side. It helps whitewash it without going overboard, still transparent, and kind of gives you that pickling satisfaction without all the work. Could you imagine doing something without having to do all the work in finishing? Aerosol cans, baby. So that pretty much sums up for today all of our aerosol cans. Wait, there's more. There's Varathane, there's Deft water-based, there's Deft Lacquer, and there's polyurethane. What was this one? Oh yeah. So what does this mean for you as a consumer? Well, Deft is probably the basic finish for starting out. It's very easy to use. They do make it in a brushable form that's in a gallon or a quart can, but the Deft Clear Wood Finish Satin is probably the most forgiving lacquer out there. But keep in mind that it is a basic nitrocellulose. And what does that mean from before? We talked about that it will scratch white, it will not take moisture, and it will not take heat. But if you have something that you plan on putting on the wall, such as a clock, then it works fantastic for that. But if it's anything where you're going to have, comes in contact with humans, let's put it that way, might not be the best finish. After that, though, it is. The one thing that they did really well, though, is this spray cap. And it's hard to find a good spray cap. But this one here is rotatable, and it has a nice fan on it. So when you're spraying, you get a nice spray gun type feel for it. So that's very good. So that anytime you see the blue, that is lacquer based. Anytime you see the green, that is water based. Okay. And yes, it comes in satin, semi-gloss, and gloss. There's no flat or matte. Polyurethane, probably a great application for stairs, for things that have really high traffic. You want to go with a polyurethane. And this has a very nice fan on it as well from Rust-Oleum. It's not the same as far as it's tunable, but it does have a very nice fan on there. Yep, you can kind of see it right there. It's nice and wide. And then we have, now this can right here is water-based. Everything about it with the orange color, very similar to the gold. Everything about it looks oil-based. Looks, yeah, that's it. But you'll see right here it says oil-based. This does not. That is water-based. So anytime you see this can on our website, this is a water-based. They also make a spar varnish, looks just like it, but it says spar instead of ultimate. That is water-based as well. All right. Ooh, one last thing. So we had talked about the Deft spray tips. We had talked about the versatility of that fan. Well, if you have a Mohawk, you do a lot of spraying. Mohawk also makes large fan button. That means you can put your whole finger on there with lots of space. They also make replacement fan heads in case, let's say, you're trying to do a rattle can shake off and you break a top. You can replace it. What do you got, Robert? The water base will not yellow white paint. It's a great subject to bring up. Unless it is a cab acrylic white, unless it is a lacquer that is made for white in general, like it's the top coat and white, anything you put over top of it is going to slightly yellow it. And now I'm talking snow white, I'm talking pure white. If you have anything that is a slight antique white, an ivory white, you don't have to worry so much about what coverage you put on top of that because naturally it's going to age anyways. But if you want something that is snow white and you want to stay snow white, then it's better to get a cab acrylic. It's better to get the general finishes, white, brushable. Anything that is a white and top coat built into each other, that's going to give you the truest white for the longest amount of time. You definitely don't want to put a polyurethane over white or actually any color at all because it will completely amber it. But water-based will keep it clear for the most part. It's still going to slightly amber. All of them have what's called plasticizers. And plasticizers are what actually turn yellow over time. So as long as you have your titanium dioxide and you have your plasticizers and they're together in the same solution, typically you won't have that issue whatsoever. Pardon me, let me spin this around. There we go. Did that hat order come in yet? Not yet. Coleman has not approved the hat order yet, so please keep pushing and keep making sure that he understands that we need to have that hat order because that would be great to have hats and shirts. All right, so I hope today that this was somewhat informative, that you kind of understood that there's so many aerosol cans out there, what they can all do, and that there's options such as extra buttons. There's also spray can snap-on pieces that you can use. Myself personally, I don't do that. I just find that there's more issues down the road with them. They do work really good. If you're a beginner and you haven't done any aerosol can work, definitely check those out. because it will give you a feel for what the aerosol can will put out. But at the same time, as you become more comfortable with an aerosol can, you'll realize that your finger or thumb will work a lot better, faster, and easier, as well as you don't have an apparatus on the can in case you have to get around things, stuff like that. So it's all up to you. When it comes down to the beginner, I highly recommend them. As you get more advanced with aerosol cans, you'll find that you won't use it as much. Once again, I am Mike Z. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch our Abrasive and Proud of It live. Chris will be with us again Friday on YouTube and Facebook, and he'll be joining us later today at 2 o'clock on Instagram for the same thing. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. There, I feel better.